Hello and welcome to the first episode of our new podcast series, Conversations with Payment Innovators and Leaders. I am super excited to kick this off. My name is Christine Loredo and I am your host. And this podcast is sponsored by Blackhawk Networks and the Bay Area Chapter of Wnet. Before we get involved with our first guest, Jen Philo, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and why I'm excited about this and what it means to kick this off. I've been in fintech about a decade, most recently working for Investnet Yodlee, where I got to do a lot. I launched a couple businesses for them, leveraged their data and built an ABI business, and then leveraged the data and built a data business itself. I also started an incubator where I had 40 companies and graduated all of those for 150 million raised, a couple exits, and currently working with some of them today. So you could say I built a love for startups and innovation, which leads me to today. And I am currently doing some angel investing, advising, and have just started working for a startup myself. So I am very bullish in innovation and very bullish in what women can bring to the table. I had the opportunity to find founders during the incubator, and unfortunately, there weren't that many women and, quite frankly, minorities. But when they did show up, they were outstanding. And so I'm super excited to show off some of our leaders in fintech and what they've done. And we have seen huge progress in fintech, especially in the payments arena, as contactless payments has been more important and we further our digital lives. And so I can't wait to highlight some of the innovations, not only in payments, but the importance of women and this industry. And therefore, I'm excited to announce Jen Philo. She is the GVP of Digital Commerce and Loyalty at Blackhawk Networks. And she has most recently won Payment Source's Most Influential Women in Payments for 2021. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Jennifer. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation. I've definitely been looking forward to it. You've done some great things. It's a remarkable introduction. So congratulations to you. That was phenomenal.
Thank you. Yes, I just love talking about all these entrepreneurs, and I love the start of your career. And I want to, if you don't mind, start with that. When we talked the other day and got to know each other, you talked about the time of your life when you started your business, and it was when you were growing your family, and both of you and your husband were off running careers and starting a family, and you were able to start your own company and eventually sell it to Coinstar, all in the midst of that crazy part of life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about it and how that created your kind of successful outcome that we experience now.
Sure. I love this story. You have to go way back now as I look at it, because my kids are now 23 and 21, which is crazy to think about. But we did move from California to the East Coast, and I was working for a really small company, and they had a hard time having an out-of-state employee. But fortunately, I was able to continue with the network that I had and create my own business while my husband was in medical school. So I had literally a 0 and a 2-year-old and wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I started a prepaid company, basically reselling services on my own to local, bodegas and convenience stores in the Metro DC area, which is such a great, diverse area. And I learned a lot about that business and was able to create a network of other women and people and partnerships and build a nice size business that ultimately sold to Coinstar. And it was really a convergence of connections that I had made over that time of building that business. And it was just the right move, both for myself and for my customers, because it sort of went from a small sort of startup side business to something that grew really quickly. And Coinstar was such the right company to acquire. And then I subsequently went to work for Coinstar with the business, with the purchase of my company, and stayed there for almost 10 years. And I look back on it, and it was such a great opportunity. And it really is an example of sort of just going where life takes you and meeting really great people along the way. And the fact that it really did happen naturally makes me believe it was the right move, right? So went from working for a small company to running my own small company and building it to selling it to a mid-sized company and then staying there for quite a while.
Wow, what a ride. I mean, I could just see you going from those locations in DC, having lived there, and it's quite a complicated city if you don't know how to get around. I can just see you just getting it all right and getting it home and doing that as well. What when you went and worked for Coinstar, I bet there was a lot of changes that you had to get used to, having running your own business and being the boss and probably running the household as well. What was it like? Did you have to adjust, or was it easy working with teams and collaboration? What was the culture like, and what were some of the kind of learnings that you could take and pass on in that experience of transition?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I moved to Coinstar, mind you, I moved with the business that I built. And so that was a really great bridge there, right? That I knew my customers, and it felt very good to me that I was able to bridge that transition for them as well. And, so I came in with a business that they were investing to grow. And so it was really nice because they welcomed me as an expert. They appreciated that I had a small company and was knocking on doors to win business and really understood prepaid and what that market, but most importantly, that I understood the customer. And that appreciation that they had for me and the respect they had for what I did bring in was really small by comparison to their business. What I sold them was little comparison, right, to what they were building and other acquisitions that they were making. But I think collaboration was really critical to that transition, and there was a really good teamwork environment there. I worked with great people, some of them which are at Blackhawk today, interestingly enough. So it's a very small world. When you network, it's important.
Awesome.
Keep that in mind because
Yeah.
you never know, how your paths will cross
Yes.
again. But at Coinstar, it was a very entrepreneurial environment. And so for me, it was easy to fit in to that sort of high growth engine that they were building. But I learned so much. And that is what I take forward is the ability to listen and collaborate and learn. And so for me, almost spending a decade there between owning my business and working with them even before I sold them my business to working for them, I just can't reiterate enough that being able to learn and listen and evolve. And I ultimately ended up in parts of their company that were not with prepaid, and then back to gift cards. Sort of wore different hats. And I really challenge people to do that and get out of your comfort zone and stretch because it was a path to lead me where I am today. And I look back on that really fondly, and I appreciate all the opportunities that Coinstar did give to me while I was there.
Wow, you sound like a real connector. And I can see how one door opens another, opens three, opens five, opens 10, and how important it is. And to your point of you never know who you're going to run into again 10 years later or even 5 years later, it's really important to make sure you remember that. And definitely something I've learned through my career. But in this day, connection's a little harder, right? We've got a pandemic. We're not meeting in person. We're not even going to the office. We're definitely not going to conferences. So now that you're in a very senior position, you have a big team, and you probably have lots of different people on your team. How are you leading, connecting, and what have been some of the struggles that you've been able to overcome now that we've been in this for a year?
Yeah. Actually, I was talking to one of the team members the other day about it. She and I were on the road together when we started to hear about planes, being grounded and sort of the world shutting down. And we were just talking about that, going, can you believe that was a year ago? Right. And it's been a really interesting time. So I have to admit to you, I love Zoom team challenges. And so I can almost imagine my team hearing me say this right now and laughing or rolling their eyes. But I go to Google a lot to look for, what are ideas to get the team together, to have some fun, learn more about one another. We've hired new team members during the pandemic who I've not met in person. So you think about, building a team, but also bringing in new folks to that team and building those connections. It's been challenging. And so internally, I am known for a good competition, team competitions with Zoom. So folks virtually, doing gardening together or cooking together and writing stories about that, sharing fun facts about one another. Just last week, we had baby photos and we had to guess who they were and then share fun facts. And it's a really great way to take a minute, right? And have some fun and weave in work with your personal life. But also, there has been a silver lining, and a lot of people do talk about the fact that we've gotten to know each other better. I've met spouses, pets, kids, friends, right? We learn so much because we're in our employees' homes. We're in one another's homes now, working. And so I've really learned from this environment that you have to be flexible and open, and then also just really communicative, right? People are working really hard. It's new. We're all learning how to do this work from home, work remotely together. And I just really look to reach out and improve my own and look inward at my own communication skills to be sure I'm not moving too quickly and I am bringing the team together and they are feeling like an integrated team and that they're still connected, to the company and our mission. But it's a challenge.
Yes, it is. I mean, back when this whole thing started, I really struggled with my team because I had people from all different levels and needs of guidance. And you kind of were dealing with your own personal issues with your family, and we kind of had to say, okay, we got to figure out a way to connect. We have to, and the company did do these cooking shows, and we're very grateful that they had made an effort. But I think we've come pretty full circle. Like, I think we're all missing connection, and I feel like there's much more effort I've seen in the last few months to connect more and actually pay attention and not multitask. And I get excited when we go back and we'll be able to meet in person. But I definitely think we've improved our online communication and our digital networking capabilities. And I feel that that's one of the silver linings is learning some skills you didn't have before. And it certainly sounds like you agree and have made that happen. So, there's always these positive things that come out of these situations. And again, one of the biggest positives is what's going on in payments. Wow.
Yeah.
What a year. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we've seen tremendous developments. We've seen just in fintech, what a year. I mean, the numbers from deal size went up dramatically in Q4 and all the companies that have gone IPO. And then if you look at the developments as consumers change the way they shop, the way they make purchases, can you provide some details as to what has been revealed in the payment industry due to the pandemic that you're proud of and maybe call it a silver lining or an area of excitement that we have witnessed?
So for what we're seeing, what's really exciting is that the consumer adoption of new shopping behavior is on pace or maybe even a little ahead of the technologies. And so we're pacing with the customer and driving solutions for our retail partners and the end consumer together. And to me, that's really exciting, right? We are a technology platform. We pride ourselves on connecting people and payments. And so at Blackhawk, it's just been in the digital space a really wild ride with the adoption rates. We're seeing adoption rates that we didn't anticipate for 3 years. And to me, that's really exciting because it's opening up a lot of opportunity for the consumer, whether it's, connecting to a new brand, an ascendant brand. We have so many new retailers and we're such an entrepreneurial society that it's exciting to see new companies on the rise and how we can help them connect with consumers, but also just making sure that we meet the customer where they are. And it's different today, right? We're certainly our core business of brick and mortar is essential, but we need to think outside the box and say, a customer is adopting mobile faster than ever before. Most consumers will say they're not going to return to their prior shopping habits after the pandemic. And so we see buy online, pick up in store, and look how quickly that has evolved. And companies have delivered curbside pickup, right? And the technology along with that, whether it's through their mobile app or even just a sign in a parking lot. I love that. I love that we're seeing commerce meet the demand of a consumer that is challenged. And that is the silver lining, that we are finding ways in the pandemic to help the customer, help retailers, and really understand the needs of what we're experiencing and find ways to help. And for me, that it doesn't happen very often in your career where you really feel like you can drive meaningful results quickly, really fast. And that's the environment that we're in today. And so it is a bit of a silver lining. And seeing, the customer really have the ability to drive through a challenging time and find ways still to connect with brands, connect with one another, right? And really adopt new behaviors that I think are going to be good for commerce moving forward. So if there is a silver lining, I think that it's the customer driving us forward, and you can't lose if you're following the customer and making it simple, effective, safe, right, for them to shop and connect with the brands that they love.
Yes, and it's interesting about the pandemic is obviously there are some people that are really affected and are not shopping as much, but many of us are shopping more just for different things, right? We're not buying work clothes. We're buying things to improve our backyard or our inside gym, or something that we're doing inside, and so those shopping patterns have changed, but they're still shopping, and they're learning new ways to shop and feeling comfortable about it. And what's impressive is what I've seen on the retail side is you don't have to touch, feel, but they've really enhanced the ability to really see the fabric and see how it's going to work. And I think that's been really remarkable, companies staying on top of the consumer, and because the consumer's behavior is just skyrocketing like this. And it's been an interesting kind of hobby to see the evolution of those experiences. And one of the things that is fascinating me about payments is biometrics. I know we didn't talk about this before when we met, but it's some ways it fascinates me, in some ways it scares me, as I know there's more necessity to three-factor authenticate and make sure people are who they say they are. But what's your opinion on some of those more far out methods that are evolving, and is it an excitement or is it a fear for you?
A really good question. You're right. We didn't chat about this. I think, look, security is ultimately so imperative with payments, right? And shifting shopping behaviors, and it's all of our responsibility to protect that buying experience, no matter how the customer is finalizing that transaction. So sure, there are some discomforts. You feel like you're opening your life, right? But I do think that authentication, three-factor authentication, is important because fraud deterrence and protection in this environment is critical. And you have so many, there'd be so many layers of complexity on top of it if we weren't willing to share that information about ourselves to protect. And so it comes along with the territory of touchless payments, right? And the innovation and speed. So the faster a transaction is, the more protective we all need to be around that transaction. So, device fingerprinting and scanning and face recognition, these are areas where, the companies that are doing it have to be proficient at protecting that data and secure, which they are. And the customer has to feel comfortable interacting. But I'll tell you, with the rise of folks who are adopting digital and adopting wallets so quickly in US and abroad as a result of the pandemic, shows the consumer has that faith and confidence to do it. So I think we need to be mindful of how the consumer is responding to answer your question, are we comfortable or not? They're ultimately going to tell us, right, if we're hitting the mark or we're not hitting the mark as a technology category. And it feels like with the adoption and customers who, more than 50% of customers who are surveyed say they're not going to return to pre-COVID shopping behavior, as we said earlier. And so I think that's very telling to answer your question, right? It seems like people understand the reasoning behind it, and it really is to protect the customer and the experience. Yeah, but it is new. I mean, right, we're going to...
Well, in time, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking about all the time that I've saved on some of the new habits I have. And I think that, especially with this kind of era now, there's so much learned from, wow, what I can do now that I couldn't do then because I'm not driving to the store or shopping. I'm doing things effortlessly and safely online, and it will create more opportunity. And going back a little bit to our prep talk, there were some things that we talked about, and I want to relate back to WNet and the female leadership and mentoring. But one of the things I was most impressed about when I heard about Blackhawk was how many women are involved at the executive level, and then how many women are at the company. And I was really shocked because I may have mentioned when I was looking for founders back when I was running the incubator, none of them were applying. And I was like, I need to inspire. I got to get these fabulous ladies to, apply and build great things. But you have had a different experience, and I'd love to hear it from yourself because it was just fantastic.
Yeah, we're really proud of this. And it's interesting because we don't always recognize how spectacular this is until you see the percentages. But 49% of our team here at Blackhawk is comprised of women, and 45% of our management team is women at Blackhawk. And so you're right, I do have a different experience. Our CEO is female, Talbot Roche, and she's phenomenal. And if you think about an environment where we have such balance on our workforce between men and women, we earn these roles because of our talents and who we are. And I'll tell you, there are many times where I will be on a Zoom call these days, or I'll in a meeting, and not until it's over did I realize we walked in with a full team of women, right? Or a couple men in that meeting. And I think it's truly the compliment that we don't recognize it. It's normal for us. And so to answer your question, that isn't a normal experience for most. When I say that, it just comes natural within the organization that I'm at. I am surrounded by really smart people, men and women. And I think that's what's so phenomenal about the mix of what we have is that I don't think about it either way because it's so balanced, right? I just look at it as a team and of really smart people and colleagues. And a lot of them happen to be women. And so I appreciate that because, I have folks that I can call, and I have people that I can look up to within my organization. I don't need to go outside of it. And I have a lot of great examples set for me every day on communication skills, presentation skills, right? Delivery. And so it's just a really incredible environment to be part of. And I so appreciate it because, to your point, not everybody has this luxury that we have here to have, a woman at the helm who's really, really smart. She's earned it. She's, guides the company with really principled manner and has built an organization comprised of a really strong mix of men and women, almost exactly balanced. It's incredible. It really is. I feel very fortunate to be here. Yes.
Obviously we're a little constrained, but I think it's important to have mentors and others to look to. And so I wanted to know who your mentor was in the female arena, or somebody who inspired you as you grew in the ranks of your career.
Such a great question. I think that I've been really fortunate over my fairly long career at this point to have had a lot of really great people along my path guide me. And, I have folks coming out of even before Coinstar in the early days who really took me under their wing to train me and answer my millions of questions that I would have, but also to provide me that guidance even when I wasn't asking for it, to be active listeners to me and watch me and say, maybe you should think about it this way or this way. So I've been really fortunate. I'll be honest with you, I have a very strong mom who I look to. She raised 6 kids and always had her own career, and she was also an entrepreneur. She's a phenomenal mentor to me and really was a part of the building blocks to who I am today, that I don't think about my gender first. I'm sort of headstrong that way and sometimes forget that there is a difference, right? And I really thank my mom for that, of always having my back to do that. Ultimately ending up at Blackhawk working for Talbot is just spectacular, right? I have always enjoyed a relationship with her where if I'm needing guidance or just, I always get honesty from her. And so she's been a great executive sponsor and mentor to me and to many people. And so even having her at the helm and watching her lead by example and learning from her provides mentorship when she's not having a one-on-one with me. And so I'm really fortunate to be in this company and work for someone like her and have that example to guide us. And it's a tough job, what she does. And she does it with such grace. And she's very personal. And I do consider myself fortunate to have a building block of people along my path. But at this point in my career, to be working at a company that's led by a female CEO, and it's her, and her advice that she provides back, I'm really grateful for it. And so she's absolutely someone I look to as a mentor.
Oh, that's awesome. Fantastic. Oh, gives me a little bit of shivers. I would love to meet her someday. She sounds wonderful. One thing I want to end on, because we talked about it in the beginning, or I talked about it in the beginning, and it's new. So you won the Payment Source's Most Influential Woman in Payment for 2021. Do you have any, I mean, there's so many reasons I could think of, but what do you think it was that got them about your career and your kind of charge and personality that had you walk away with the winner?
It's such a great award. I'm still basking in it. It is new information. So thank you for that. I don't know that it's fully sunk in. It is a privilege. The list of women on Women in Payments is fabulous. There's so many strong women. I think it's indicative and it's timely of the conversation we're having, right, about gender and in payments and technology. And so to see that list of all of the women who were honored this year, it's such a privilege to be part of this. And I'm really, it's just a huge compliment and honor. I think a lot of it is my background. I grew up in sales, right? I think it is the aspirational component of my story. I really did go in the direction of where my career took me. And when doors opened, I was willing to say, okay, I'm going to go through that and see how I'm going to make this work. And I raised my kids with my career. My husband has also a very demanding career. So we were really in it together to say, yes, we're both going to be out there. We're both going to be working really hard. And ultimately, the motto that I like to live by is to not be afraid of the aspirational ask, whether it's to myself or to someone else. And so in that story, I hope it inspires others to say, look, be willing to go through doors, be willing to take chances, be willing to stretch yourself to a point of discomfort, and good things will come. And I see it that way. I'm so grateful for this career that I have and people I get to work with. And I genuinely love and have a passion for this business. And so hopefully that came through, and maybe that was something that caught their eye, that I just genuinely love what I do. And I'm grateful that I get to do it every day with the people I get to work with. And, hopefully that inspires others, to be aspirational and to aspire for great things. Because I feel like I've had great things come my way, and this award is definitely one of them. It's phenomenal.
Excellent. That was awesome. I loved hearing your take on being uncomfortable, because it definitely is uncomfortable. But if you can do it and get through it, you grow and those doors do open. So I think that's phenomenal and great advice to some of the younger folks that are listening. Jennifer, it has been phenomenal talking to you. I've learned so much, and I only wish we could be in person. And I hope one day we do get to do that. So thank you to Blackhawk, thank you to Jennifer, and thank you to Wnet. This has been a fantastic first episode.
Thank you for having me.